Hi! It's Lyra from BS Psychology 181 of National University. So today, let's talk about the nervous system and its influence to movements. Are you ready? I am ready. So the nervous system is the complex network of nerves and cells that carry messages to and from the brain and spinal cord to the various parts of the body. If you're all ready, what are we waiting for? Let's start! The first main function is the control of body's internal environment to maintain homeostasis, and the second one is the programming of spinal cord reflexes, and the third one is the memory and learning. And the fourth one will be the one we'll be focusing about, which is the voluntary control of movements. So, here we go! Before we go on to the topic, let us first define what nervous system is in a simplest form. So, what does the nervous system do? There are four functions of nervous system. Movements of the body are brought about by the harmonious contraction and relaxation of selected muscles. Contraction occurs when nerve impulses are transmitted across neuromuscular junction to the membrane covering each muscle fiber. Skeletal muscles are attached to bones and produce movements at the joints. Most muscles are not continuously contracting but are kept in a state ready to contract. Every movement of the body has to be correct for force, speed, and position. These movements of the body are continuously reported to the central nervous system by the receptors who were sensitive to posture, position, equilibrium, and the internal condition of the body. Movements may be intrinsic to the body itself and carried out by the muscles of the trunk and body cavity. Example of this is breathing, swallowing, sneezing, laughing, and defecating. Also, example of this is urinating. I almost forgot. So, this is carried out by the skeletal muscles of the trunk and the limbs. Innervated by efferent motor nerves and sometimes by efferent sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. So what do we call with these receptors? These receptors are called proprioceptors. Level are the movement of the viscera, some of which do not include the central nervous system, which are being controlled by the neurons of the autonomic nervous system within the viscera themselves. Spinal cord is severed that no nerve impulses can arrive from the brain. Certain movements of the trunk and the limbs below the level of injury can still occur. Movements can be organized at several levels of the nervous system. The brainstem controls the muscles of the eye, the bladder, and the basic movement, which is walking and running. Trunk and limbs occur at the next level of the spinal cord. This level is the gray matter of cerebral hemisphere, both the cortex and the subcortical basal ganglia. This is the level of conscious of movements. At the higher level, respiratory movements are controlled by lower brainstem. A minority of nerve fibers that supplying a muscle are ordinary nerve fiber that actually make it contract. Next level is the hypothalamus. It commands certain totalities of movement such as vomiting, urinating, defecating, and curling up and falling asleep. So, the sensory receptor chiefly concerned with the body movement is the muscle spindle and the tendon organs. Move forward to sensory receptors. The muscle spindle is more complicated than the tendon organ. Although it is more studied, or let us say it is more intensively studied, it is less well understood. Are either afferent sensory fiber that tell the central nervous system what the muscle is doing, or specialized motor fiber that regulates the behavior of the sensory nerve ending. Tendon organ consists simply of afferent nerve fibers that terminates in a number of branches upon slips of tendon where the tendons join onto muscle fibers. Let us define the tendon organ and the muscle spindle. Let's move forward to the nervous system and fitness. Muscle spindles, in the simplest form of reflexes, which is not transmitted through interneurons of the spinal cord, the delay approximately 0.02 seconds primarily occurs in the conduction of impulses to and from the spinal cord. Completing an activity you have done 100 times, like running, completing a new skill, or simply thinking, all utilize the nervous system. Nervous system and fitness go hand in hand because their nervous system is adapting or learning a new skill. Let me give you an example. For example, when a client learns a new exercise such as dumbbell bench press, you'll see that the client movement is kinda awkward and difficult to do. Working with clients, a lot of initial gains come from the improvement of the nervous system as it learns new movement and become more efficient at doing its job. However, the more they repeat and the more they find they're doing, the more it became smooth, and the second you try it, it is already in your nature, or you're already used into that movement, because it will help you to correctly pick the type of exercise and intensities for clients, as well as you will know how to progress or when to progress or regress an exercise. To help you understand this, understanding the nervous system and your client's ability is very vital. How does the voluntary movement happen? In voluntary movement, the central nervous system processes sensory information supplied by the eyes, the ears, and other sense organs and receptors of the body. It selects the appropriate response, plans, and then carries out the movement by sending nerve impulses through the motor branches of the peripheral nervous system. The sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system is simultaneously increasing the activity of the heart and lungs to supply extra oxygen and nutrients to the skeletal muscles, and at the same time is decreasing the activity of the digestive system to allow increased blood flow to skeletal muscles. Spinal nerves carry information and commands to and from the spinal cord, trunks, arms, and legs. Motor and the sensory tracts of spinal cord carry and commands information between the spinal nerves and the brain. How do the different nervous system divisions connect in order to work together? The central nervous system is connected to the rest of the body by the sensory and the motor nerves of peripheral nervous system. Sensory nerves relay information to the central nervous system. Nerves of the peripheral nervous system is split into cranial and spinal nerves. Cranial nerves branch out of the brain, sending information and commands directly between the brain and the structures in the head, neck, thoracic, and abdominal cavities, including eyes, ears, nose, mouth, throat, heart, lungs, liver, and all the other abdominal thoracic organs, as well as some muscles of the shoulder and neck. Spinal nerves branch out from the spinal cord, then branch off to make the nerves of the trunks, arms, and legs. Spinal nerves are classified according to region in which they branch off the spinal cord. Cervical spinal nerves are branch off from the neck region. Thoracic nerves branch off, from which in turn excites the muscle that contains it. Is the nervous system important? The nervous system is important because it is an integral of our ability to function in every way. You know, muscle makes movement by contracting and pulling into our bones. However, it is the nervous system that is responsible for stimulating the muscles and causing them to contract. The neural impulses of the nervous system, muscle would simply not work. If someone experiences a severe trauma to their spinal cord, it will often result in paralysis of their body below the point of trauma. For example, if the spinal cord is damaged above the nerves that stimulate their lower body, one example is the legs, then they will not be able to walk again. This is because the messages which are intended for the legs can no longer reach them. In essence, it is like the power cable to your house being cut and the lights going out. The nervous system is not just responsible for stimulating muscle. It stimulates every tissue and organ within the body. It is therefore important that you understand the nervous system so that you can train your clients or other people safely and effectively. The nervous system, along with the endocrine system, works to control all activities within the human body. It does this by communicating messages between the brain and the body very quickly using nerve impulses or action potential. Let's move to movement as reflex and volition. Traditionally, movements have been divided into those subserving reflexes and those associated with purposeful action. Volitional movement is the result of cognitive processes which lead to the exertion of some action on the world. These processes are not clearly defined or understood, making it difficult to develop concrete, rigorous models to describe the way they operate. Although the resulting physical movement can be measured well and task-related neural activity can be recorded and correlated to the movement, in the absence of well-identified drivers of neural activity, the meaning of an association between any given neural pattern and the task will be open to debate. In contrast to volitional movement, reflexes seem especially amenable to the modeling approach used by engineers. Instead of a process that begins with intention, the generation of reflexive movement starts with sensation. A given stimulus elicits a set motor action. As described by Sherrington at the turn of the 19th century, these movements are stereotypical and generated by neuronal action that takes place in orderly fashion beginning in the spinal cord, with elaboration by groups of neurons in progressively higher neural structures such as the hindbrain, midbrain, and cerebral cortex. Sherrington arrived at this hierarchical scheme by surgically separating these different structures and studying the remaining reflexive behavior. Reflexes are effective during volitional movement, and they contribute to the successful production of intended action. In laboratory experiments using instructed tasks, movement intention is at least partly specified. The idea of motor set experiments in the mid-70s and early 80s was to separate a volitional component of the task from that which was more related to the mechanics of the movement. This logic was followed in experiments in which monkeys were trained to move a target in response to a rapid displacement of the handle they were holding. A target light served as the instruction and indicated which of two directions to move before the go signal. Although the handle displacement was cued to move, its direction had no behavioral meaning. Two types of neuronal responses were found in motor and cortical neurons. An early response after the handle perturbation was correlated within the direction of the rapid displacement. A latter pattern of discharge corresponded to the direction of the instructional movement, but was interrelated to the perturbation direction. The first response was deemed to be reflexive. and due to afferent input elicited by the perturbation, while the second was considered more volitional in that it was the target related. The subject's response, as registered by the onset of the muscle activity, began 70 milliseconds after the perturbation, and the movement began 20 milliseconds later. That is reflex action and volitional movement. So that is for the nervous system and its influence to movement.